Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How are y'all doing? I am, of course, your host, Mark Hernandez, and I am getting off of, I think I'm just about through the hardships of caffeine withdrawal as I've decided to stop drinking coffee. Mainly because I've been having some weird muscly issues and I was trying to think of what could the cause be? And one of my first thoughts was maybe the coffee I'm drinking. I drink 3 cups a day. And lately after I've been drinking them, I just feel a little off. So I thought, well, maybe there's a correlation. Drink this, feel off. Maybe it's because one leads to the other. So I did a quick Google, and the first thing, I just Googled, I think, coffee, muscle, pain or discomfort. And the first thing that came up was something that said, yeah, it could be. And I said, all right, that's enough for me. 100% that's the cause. So I decided to stop drinking coffee, cold turkey. And here we are. Had some rough days with the old headache and whatnot. Dealing with fatigue and just the uncomfortableness of getting off of an addictive substance. And I know there are a lot of people who drink coffee and they're fine, and that's fine. But I remember hearing someone say a long time ago, it may not have been that long ago, but anything that you stop doing and you have to go through stuff, something like this withdrawal, how good can it be for you really? Because there are plenty of health reports and stuff of that nature that talk about the benefits of drinking coffee as well as tea. And I think it's more so around the caffeine aspect. But if you feel like shit when you stop consuming it, how good can it really be? So I do wonder if caffeine was... My only question about caffeine withdrawal is that I used to drink years and years ago, over a decade ago, potentially at this time in my life, I'm so fucking old, potentially double-digit decades, but I may have, at the tail end of 2 decades ago, I may have still been drinking some Mountain Dew Code Red. I was a big fan of Mountain Dew Code Red and the 3D, I think they were jalapeno Doritos. I was all about them 3D Doritos. Even though when I think back on them, taste-wise, it was a lot of air. And it was nowhere near as good as just a traditional Cool Ranch or regular. Is the regular just supposed to be nacho cheese Doritos? The red bag? Is that what that is? Doritos are good. Doritos are good. Sun chips are really good. Munchos? Are they? Is that what those are called? Those kind of airy, large potato chips that are covered in more salt than all potato chips combined, all other potato chips combined. Those are delicious. I love those as a kid. Those were a treat. I never got the big bag, but if I had any money to get a snack at Walgreens, it was Munchos and was it Dean's mugs, the chocolate milk. I get all of that. I love chocolate milk as a kid. I still love it today, but it's a dangerous slope. This is a games podcast, though, and I do talk about games, and the games that we'll be talking about today include PO'd Definitive Edition, Phantom Fury, HYPERCHARGE Unboxed, Astor Blade of the Monolith, Pool Party, and Ghost Teen Escape from Limbo. Why is my nose running? Is it the caffeine withdrawal? I don't think so. But yeah, I think I'm pretty much over it, hopefully. It has made playing games a bit of a struggle this past week, and means I have yet to... I thought I was going to get a head start on the next Attack the Backlog game, and I'm behind. I should still have the episode up at the scheduled time of this Sunday, but maybe we'll skip another week. We'll see. I think I have the time to make up and get that done. But before I get to what I've been playing and all that good jazz, my nose running, gonna drive me nuts, my eye watering, what the hell's going on? I got my Alan Wake print on the wall. But there was a PlayStation State of Play, and I watched it, and I thought it was pretty bad. Overall, it does show us that PlayStation VR 2 is as dead as can be. We got 2 games shown for it, both of which are coming out on the MetaQuest as well, so nothing to get excited about there. We did today or sometime, I think it was officially announced, or maybe it was just someone reporting that it's going to be happening. We're going to get a PC adapter for PlayStation VR 2 for $60, which is great for the people who have already invested in PlayStation VR 2, but it's in no way something that makes the potential purchase of PSVR 2 any more desirable. Because if you haven't purchased a headset yet and you want one, just get a MetaQuest. It's wireless. It's lighter, I think, but it's wireless. It's wireless. It's wireless. And it has its own ecosystem full of a whole bunch of games, and it's wireless. It's wireless. So just do that. Forget PSVR 2. There's no point. There may be some exclusives on PlayStation 5, but then you need that PlayStation 5, and there's nothing that special that makes it worth spending that much money for wires. But the State of Play, I thought, was pretty terrible. They spent a lot of time just on Concord, which had a opening cinematic that gave you a lot of character and personality and was kind of fun, but it was in no way indicative of what kind of game it was going to be. If you look at that cinematic, you think, oh, maybe this will be some kind of fun adventure game. That's not what it is. It's just a fucking another Overwatch, seemingly. And that doesn't interest me. It looks pretty. The actual gameplay, when we saw it looks good. But I don't have any desire to play it. And given the way the YouTube thumbs down went, I believe it had 18% positive thumbs in or whatever. But another thing they said about the game when they were talking about it and showing it off was that they're planning to do weekly cinematics, story cinematics for the game. That sounds fucking expensive. Talk about spending too much money on these games, wasting money on these games. That's a fucking massive waste if they're going to stick with it. I don't see how that's even remotely feasible to stick with that kind of release cadence. It's not going to happen. There's no way they're going to be releasing weekly cinematics, and if they do, they're going to be short as hell, because those are not cheap to make. And how much do they really add? The people who play those kinds of games, do they really care? I say this as someone who played Apex Legends for years, And every time they would release a new cinematic, release story via these text message logs or whatever the hell they were doing, I didn't consume any of that because I don't give a shit. I don't care about the lore of Apex. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I just want to play the game. Just tell me how the new character controls, what their abilities are. That's it. I don't need to know how they're related to this character and they're related to that character and how the world did this to them and how this is why the world changed in this way because it's reflecting this character's powers and blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking care. I just want to play the game. It's an online multiplayer game. It's not a story-driven game. If you want to make a single-player game, then put that stuff there. So they spent a lot of time on Concord. And then what surprised me most about the show, because I was under the wrong impression, I guess. I knew there wasn't going to be a whole bunch of first-party stuff. I wasn't under any illusion that we were going to get a bunch of big reveals, because they came out and said that there weren't going to be any big sequels, whatnot, until Q1 next year or after April-ish or some timeline along those lines. So I wasn't expecting anything big, other than we heard rumors for a while about Astor, and we got that, and I'll get to that shortly. But I thought this was supposed to be a state of play about what you can expect to play for the rest of this year, given the fact that we don't have any first-party games for the most part. Here are a bunch of third-party things you'll be able to play on PlayStation 5. That wasn't the case. I was surprised by how many 2025 games there were in this state of play. And that was definitely a bummer. But ignoring that, I think, for me at least, there were games I was excited about. Dynasty Wars Origins, I'm excited about that. Of course, Monster Hunter Wilds, excited. That's next year. I think Origins is also next year. We had, I can't remember the titles, The Way the Wind Blows, something along those lines, and something else. There were two similar games that felt Souls-ish that both looked very good. One of them was potentially going to be free to play. I think it's a NetEase game and as co-op. We didn't really get much detail because there wasn't any time to go into any detail with these games after Concord, so we just got these trailers. But they both look good. Infinity Nikki, I'm intrigued by. This is a dress-up game. You get to explore an open world. Dress up Nikki. Got a little cat buddy or something. It was different. I appreciate different. But the savior of the show, I think for almost everyone, is Astrobot. Astrobot looked incredible. Astrobot looks like a potential Game of the Year candidate for me. It looks like, as someone who doesn't really engage with their PlayStation 5, it looks like a game that, because I also want it to succeed, I want it to sell, and I'm pretty sure. Another thing about Concord, not free to play, but with Astrobot, I'm feeling pretty confident it's going to be a $70 game, and I may pay full price for it, since I so rarely pay anything for anything on that platform. I might pay full price because it reminds me of the kind of games that I used to play on PlayStation when I loved PlayStation, because I adored the PlayStation 2. And it reminds me of those feelings. It looks incredible. I guess there were a lot of things that were from the VR game that I never played in as well, but it's supposed to be pretty big, 80 plus levels. But just so much about that trailer, the way the music was handled, the visuals, the variety, it looks amazing. And I hope it's amazing. and I hope it does well. I'm worried about it just because of the kind of game it is compared to what people are used to on PlayStation. But maybe that pack-in game, Playroom, is that what it's called? Maybe that has put Astrobot on a lot of other people's radars and they're open to it. But then at the same time, maybe people look at Astrobot and associate it with this free thing they got with their system that they didn't have to pay for. And now the idea of spending $70 on something that's bigger, yes, but how much bigger? It's going to be interesting. I think for me, looking at the rest of this year, the success of Astrobot is what I'm most curious and concerned, and it's what I most want to see play out, how well it does. Because if it doesn't do well, what does that mean for any future Astrobot? Probably not good. And if it doesn't do well, does that mean we're just stuck with fucking Last of Us and God of War forever? From PlayStation, at least. That would be disappointing, so fingers crossed that Astrobot does well. Because even though if you go back and listen to me talk about Playroom, I probably sound way more negative on it than I was. I really like Playroom. I just didn't find, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of that shit in this thing too. I didn't think any of the DualSense stuff was all that special. I thought parts where you walk on different material and the variation in the sensation, that's kind of neat. But stuff dealing with tension or stuff, those gameplay gimmicks, I didn't really care for that. But it also could have been because it was packing so much of that into a small game, so you were constantly being thrown new gimmicks all over the place. And maybe if they're able to spread that out, I'll be more open to them playing around with the DualSense. That's a state of play. They also show that Marvel Overwatch game. Whoop-de-doo, I don't care. Doesn't look all that special to me. It's just Overwatch with Marvel characters and third person. Great. Trying to think if they showed anything else of note, but I cannot think of any. I'm more excited about Dynasty Warriors Origins than I think most people. Really want to see more of that. But yeah, let's get on to what I've been playing. Starting with PO'd Definitive Edition. This is a classic first-person shooter in the vein of Doom and Duke Nukem and those that originally came out on the 3DO and PlayStation. I own it on PlayStation because I have no idea why. I believe it's one of the few long boxes I have, which is probably why I have it, because I really like those PlayStation long boxes. I think they look very, very nice. And I never played it until last year. I think it was when I finally went through my PlayStation collection and put them all on my Polymega. And when I was installing all the games, I decided to play a few of them. And one of the ones was PO'd. I just played that, I guess, probably because it was one of the first games I installed, because I installed the long boxes first, and I only have about 5 or so long boxes. And it's a bad, weird game. I'm assuming, given that on the box art you have this giant chef, that you're playing this chef and your weapons are chef related. Well, you do get a pistol in the second level, but you first start off with a frying pan, and then you get a butcher's knife you can throw, and it's very, very weird. And the original version, given that it's a PlayStation game or a 3DO game, and the controller you had and the way first-person shooters controlled on gamepads and on consoles in those early days, it didn't feel that good. So I was very curious to see how I'd feel about this definitive edition, having had some experience with the original version. And it's still super weird because you're in that first area, you're fighting. I think it's just fried. It's not fried because they're not breaded. So just cooked chicken bits, and walking. I don't know what those red blobs were, but you're just fighting all this weird food shit. And the chicken looks kind of like a walking butthole. It's so weird, and you're just smacking them with your frying pan, and then you get the butcher's knife and you can throw that. And I'm not overly fond of the level design, but there is something charming about the weirdness of it all. When you get to the second area, you're fighting these women, and you eventually get a pistol. The thing that is appreciative about this definitive edition is that the gameplay is a lot better. It feels a lot better to play the game. And there is a pretty generous aim assist. But it's a game that I'm so happy I love that Night Dive Studios takes these old games and breathes new life into them. Gives us a way to experience them on modern hardware. It's great for preservation's sake. And I love that you have games like this that I'm sure a lot of people have never heard of or don't remember or would never even think of without this treatment. And so for people who do like to experience classic games and want an easy way to do it, or like going back into the past and seeing stuff they missed, I like that something like this exists. I don't think it's a great game, but it is a unique game. It is a weird game. It is a game that there's some value in experiencing it because it's so fucking weird, and you can now experience it in a way that feels pretty good with a controller. The only thing that kind of bums me out is that when selecting difficulty, you can't change the difficulty after you start a campaign. So when you pick a difficulty for a campaign, you're locked in, and that kind of sucks. If there was a way to do it, I didn't see it, at least not in pausing during playing a level. Yeah. If you like classic shooters, or you find them intriguing, give PO'd a shot. It's weird. It's really weird. And then Phantom Fury is a game I talked about when it came out on PC, and it's now got a console release, so I got to check out the Xbox version a bit. I still think it's okay, but in playing with the Xbox version, it does seem like the aim assist has been amped up a bit. I found it was fairly easy to hit targets without really having to think about it, which is nice to do that for console, except I don't think there was any setting to adjust that if you would want it to be maybe not as generous, if you'd want it to be a little bit looser so that you feel like you have a bit more control. It was disappointing to not see that setting. And then there still is no way to manually save, so you are beholden to the auto saves of the game, and that's still wild that there is no manual save option. But it looks good, plays well. It's a solid-ish boomer shooter that is okay. It's okay. Then HYPERCHARGE Unboxed is a game I really, really want to like because it's full of charm and I thought it was going to be a Toy Soldiers like because the way it's pitched when I was looking at it is this kind of tower defense game where you're also in it yourself in first person or third person. The third person perspective is terrible. I do not recommend it. It's bad on the level of earlier Elder Scrolls and like Elder Scrolls 3, 4, Oblivion, and Morrowind, and Fallout 3, where it's there if you want, just kind of because they could do it, but you don't really want to play it that way. So first person is the only way to play it, I'd say. Oh God, everything's going. I need water apparently. Valkyrie, Mercury needs water badly. But so first person is the only way to play it. And it is this tower defense thing where you have to worry about these things. But the whole setup of it, the theming of it is that you are toys in the human world. And the story setup is that they become max evil. They were originally max. Is your max ammo, I think, in this? Or the good guys' max ammo? Who cares about the story? One toy gets all bent out of shape because Max Ammo was played with by the younger brother, but the older brother left this toy in the packaging as a collector's item. So they got bummed that they weren't being played with too, and they became evil. There are these objects all over the world that no one knows about or some shit that allows kids to remember their toys fondly. So he destroys the first one and then explodes on them and gives them powers so he can control other toys. And then there's a war and whatever. And now years later, you've got to defend these things, these objects that let kids remember their toys from the bad guys. I really like the theming because I'm a fan of Small Soldiers, the movie, and I like this kind of thing. I love the Toy Soldiers games. So I was excited about this. And I like the way when you set up your character, you see it in this toy packaging. You can change the way the packaging looks. You'll see the different color schemes of your character, of their weapons, when you adjust that in this toy packaging, and it's fun. It's fun. But the actual gameplay, the tower defense stuff, is very light, and I don't know if it says in the description or just in the email I got, that they were trying to keep it pretty simple to just make it a nice casual thing that you can play with friends. But in doing that, there's not a lot of strategy to it, and the tower defense stuff just seems very, very light, and like you can't do a whole lot. You're limited in what you have equipped to mess around with in terms of placing around the things you have to protect. And the shooting doesn't feel great. The jumping around, you can jump around, that doesn't feel great. When you are able to grab onto a ledge, it feels very finicky and not consistent. But what I find most frustrating about the game is that it's so clearly designed for co-op, in that every level has these things you have to protect, and if you're playing by yourself, you're playing with 3 bots. And it's frustrating to have to worry about all 4 of these different things instead of just your own, because you're always forced to play with 3 other people, even if you don't have 3 other people to play with in real life. And I don't like that. I don't like having to worry about these 3 bots who are it just becomes a hectic mess when you're trying to play by yourself in a not fun way. The enemy waves in limiting your strategy, because you can't really place turrets or anything, defenses, anywhere you want. It's just directly around these things you're protecting. You can't really think about how you want to. Again, there's just no strategy to it, no thought. When enemy waves are coming, they don't show you any indicator of where they're coming from, so you can't strategize around that either. But then it doesn't really matter, because you can't build up defenses in a lot of places, just these very specific places around the things you're. It just in trying to keep it simple, they went too hard, and it's just not fun. Maybe it is fun for casual people. Maybe they'll have fun with it, but I did not enjoy it at all, sadly, even though I really, really wanted to, because the idea of it I like a lot. And the cosmetic look to your character doesn't really matter when playing by yourself, because third person, again, not good at all. And then in first person, you can't see your character, so it's all about co-op. It definitely seems like a game that you have to play with friends. It's designed that way, so if you can't do that, it's not even worth trying. Then Astor, Blade of the Monolith, is a little action-adventure game that is alright. It's pretty. It's got a nice bit of color to it, depending on the environment you're in. Some areas are more blandish, but they're deserty areas, so that makes sense. But it is a small little game where you play as Astor, and you are the chosen one. You get this sword, and you can see into the spirit realm. And you have to go to these, I'm assuming they're all going to be temples. I got through the first temple and defeated the first boss. You have to go to 3 of them to unlock this door. And then I'm assuming there'll be something behind that door. It's a perfectly fine and adequate game. I enjoy it enough, but it doesn't do anything super special. I do like the look of it. Characters have a bit of a Journey-ish vibe, but a bit more squished down with limbs. Of course, because there are no limbs in Journey. And I really like some of the attention to detail the game has. Like when you have your sword pulled out and you're in a sandy area and you are dragging across the ground, it'll make a line in the sand, which is cool. They don't have to do that. And it doesn't just happen if the sword is out. The sword has to actually be touching the sand, which, again, nice little detail. When you are under sand, little bits of sand falling from an upper level, if you're in a temple, for example, you hear that. Nice details. There are nice details, which is funny because there are parts where the game does seem a bit rough around the edges from a visual standpoint or audio standpoint. So there are these ways in which it seems very thought out, and then sometimes where it's a little finicky. You get a mount pretty early on, a spider mount, of course, because that'd be a fucking spider. That makes navigating the space a lot easier, which is appreciative because it can be annoying walking around this area. But the biggest problem with the game, the combat feels okay, but I didn't find that the parry felt... I could never get a grasp of why I had a successful parry or why I didn't. But the combat is okay. It's pretty easy to deal with hordes of enemies. The shield is pretty useful. It's pretty forgiving. Bosses don't pose much of a problem because of the shield in particular, which can take quite a bit of damage before it's fully depleted. And then replenishes it re-ups fairly quickly. The combat is easy. No challenge there. The puzzles in the temple, very simple and straightforward. You could barely even call them puzzles if you want to call them puzzles. But the biggest issue with the game is that there just isn't much to do. It's sort of an open, linear experience. You have these levels, kind of, that are these open areas, and you'll have some missions, and then you have some side missions. And you do all that. There are things to find, some collectibles to find. You can go back to areas after you completed them to get any missed collectibles. But there's just a lot of empty time where you're going around these environments. You might find a collectible, but you're not really finding anything special or unique or whatnot. And some of the areas aren't super visually stimulating to go through. So it's an alright game. But I think with a few changes, it could be a potentially great game. It's like a 6 to a 7, somewhere in that range. And I think there's potential in it to be an 8. And maybe if they make a sequel, that could be an 8. But it's fine. If you want a fun little action adventure game, that's, I don't want to say it's Zelda-ish, but in that kind of vibe, that nature, but much smaller in scope and everything. It may be worth checking out. It's all right. It's all right. It'll give you something to do for a weekend. Then Pool Party is a party game based around pool balls. And I was really disappointed with this. It's very, very limited in the number of modes it has. It has maybe 6 modes. You got tennis, football, aka soccer, sumo, hold the idol or something. Don't carry the curse, and then a free for all where I think the free for all was hit balls into things and then hit the other people into the pockets. And that's it. And then there's a sort of just play a thing with there's a tournament mode and then just a play the games mode, and they didn't seem all that different. But all the mini games, there's nothing that special to them, and the pool aspect is just that as these balls, you can either roll around or kick other opponents, and when you kick them, you hold the button down, and then it gives you the pool. If you've played a pool game, the pool angle thing where it shows you where you'll hit the other player and where they'll go, and then the direction you'll go after you hit them, like a pool ball when you're playing pool, video game pool. That's it. It's just the mini games. There's nothing really special or unique about any of them. There's so few of them that after you've played 2 full games of it or whatever, you've pretty much exhausted what there is, and it's not. There's nothing about it that says you should play this over Mario Party or any other party game. So even if you like pool, I love pool and I love pool video games. This did nothing for me, so that's a disappointment. And then Ghost Teen Escape from Limbo is a small little platformer where you have to die in order to succeed, which is to say that these levels will have graveyards, or not graveyards, they'll have gravestones in them, and there will be things you have to do where you can't reach a certain area unless you're in ghost form, and to get into ghost form, you have to kill yourself. So you die in some way, you die in a spike, you die in an electric shock thing or whatever, turn into ghost form, and then get to that gravestone to resurrect yourself and then do something or just complete the level. It sounds interesting, but in practice, there's no thought or challenge or anything to it because these levels aren't filled with gravestones all over the place. So you know that you have to kill yourself, obviously, because that's this game's gimmick. And where are you going to resurrect yourself other than the gravestone? If you could resurrect yourself anywhere, that would give the game a lot more it would make you have to think about how you're going to complete a level, because you'd have to think about where you should resurrect yourself. But that's not the case. So there's no real thought in what you have to do when you're in ghost form. Get to the gravestone. All right? There you go. Shocker. But what really killed the experience for me is that one of the early levels, I think it was level 7, you have to push these boxes so that they'll fall to the bottom area on top of these spikes so that you'll have platforms when you're in human form to jump across after you grab the key to open the door to leave, to complete the level. These boxes are physics-based. So when they fall, there's no guarantee they're going to stay in that position. They can slide backwards, they can roll backwards, they can slide forwards. And when I had to restart this level over and over and over again, just because the boxes kept doing whatever the hell they wanted, I would never fall into the right positioning so that I would be able to jump over all of them and get to the door at the end. I fucking stopped playing the game. When I had to restart that level maybe 10 times, close to 10 times, I just said, this is not fun that I am beholden to what these boxes decide to do, that it's not about skill. It's just about RNG. Are these boxes going to fucking fall in the right way? No? Okay, I guess I got to restart again. Oh, let's hope it works this time. And if you could push them when you're in ghost form so that you can go down there, not worry about the spikes and align them, that would be something. You can't push them in ghost form because you're a fucking ghost. So that just annoyed me. Yeah, that is Ghost Teen Escape from Limbo. And that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. Over there, you can get random drops, access to a monthly Q&A, a fancy smashy Discord role. If you're in the all-you-can-eat tier, you get access to the Cool Kids Club, private Discord channel, and some other additional things as well. Or you can just support me because you just want to support me. But that is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week, and a wonderful weekend. But for Now, adios, arrivederci. Bye
It's go time. Go, Daddy. It's go time. Go, Daddy.